Hey, what's up you guys? Bloody Jacob here.
Meeting my icon, Catherine Isabel.
Another week, another episode.
Have a good one.
Released in 1986 and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Raw Deal follows the efforts to prosecute mob boss Luigi Petrovita, which are repeatedly derailed thanks to a mole in the FBI. The only choice is to bring in an outsider, specifically a disgraced agent who leaps at a chance for a reinstatement. After FBI Chief Shannon gives him his orders, he fakes his death and reemerges as an ex-con named Brunner. Undercover and accountable to no one, the former Fed tears up the mob from the inside. So yeah, here we are with another action movie review, this time talking about one, as I said, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of my favorite actors of all time. In my opinion, he's the greatest action hero of all time. He's always been my favorite. And I've been really pleased over the past few years seeing him do sort of mature, more understated or subtle movies, like Maggie and Aftermath and stuff like that. Then he does sort of more zany, wacky, fun ones like, Killing Gunther still. He has a new Terminator movie coming out this year, so getting back to some of the classic stuff. I've always loved Arnold Schwarzenegger ever since I was little. He's been kind of a hero of mine, I guess. I remember reading an autobiography of his when I was in middle school or something and writing about it. I appreciate his views on a certain guy in office right now too. Don't need to go too far into that. So I've seen the vast majority of Arnold Schwarzenegger films. I remember watching at least most of Raw Deal quite a few years ago, but I haven't given it a look in a while. It was free on demand with Xfinity, so I thought I'd give it another look. Now this was again in '86, so kind of in the middle of some of his bigger films. I think Commando was released the year before this, and then of course '87 was Predator. So it kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I also know at the time I had read on IMDb he was actually trying to get out of a deal with a certain guy, and but he ended up agreeing to do this movie, even though he was wanting to do Total Recall, which he ended up doing years later, luckily. Total Recall being one of my favorite films of his, at least in the 80s and 90s. So Raw Deal, I liked. Not one of my favorite Schwarzenegger films. It's not the greatest, it's not the flashiest, really. I was a bit underwhelmed by it, I will admit. In a certain way, this movie felt almost too small for Schwarzenegger. I mean, I don't just mean that with regards to budget. But the premise is, very simple, kind of straightforward. Like, you could plop any, 80s, 90s action movie star and, call it good. I don't know. Like, even in the mid-80s, I feel like Schwarzenegger called for a, more... I don't know, just some movie with a little bit more to it than this. Because it's really just like a crime action type thing, and there's really nothing much going on with it, honestly. But really, if you're in the mood for it, it's not terrible, don't get me wrong. I still liked it, and that's just mainly because of Arnold Schwarzenegger. There is some fun to be had as he goes undercover, as he poses as this sort of new new muscle, new sort of brains around the mob and stuff like that. You see his hair slicked back, which is a different look for Arnie there. It's good to see him being sort of suave, kind of playing on that charm Arnold does have. Even this early on, Arnold had a really good presence about him. A certain amount of charisma, he brings life to a room. Even movie overall in general, I think is kind of dull like this. I think he elevates it, at least fairly successfully. So I still found some entertainment value with it for sure. And there's a little romance in this movie that felt a bit forced, a bit out of nowhere. or maybe I shouldn't say out of nowhere, but it just didn't really click with me. I didn't feel too invested in it, but the movie doesn't spend that much time with it, so it kind of is what it is. There is kind of a humorous scene, though, where she ends up, calling, giving some of his information for him to be looked into and everything, and, he's sleeping at the time, and he ends up, of course, waking up and hearing her on the phone, and he's peeking his head out the door and still making, snoring noises. I don't know. I can't quite do it that way, but so there's little things like that. And there's a line about how you shouldn't drink and bake. So that's probably the most quotable part of the movie there. And the villain I find to be pretty forgettable as well. Again, just kind of typical mob or crime boss type of guy. The performances don't really stand out in this movie to me besides Schwarzenegger, but if you're a fan of his, it's worth watching. It's not an overly long film. Just kind of falls, just sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say flat completely, but just it's one of the more forgettable Arnie films, but luckily just for his sake alone, it's worth a look if you're a fan of his. Otherwise, it's pretty by the numbers for the genre. But I will say, I do love the sort of suiting up or gearing up montage we get in this movie. Really, really cool. Then he sort of goes into his final assault in the movie, whole leather jacket routine. All he is missing is the sunglasses, right? And it is pretty badass, I gotta admit, and there's a decent shootout or two throughout. The fight scenes, like the fist fight scenes, were a bit clunky. That's an issue with more than one Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Sometimes his fight scenes are a bit clunky. But still, the shootouts made it worth it, and again, just Arnold's just general presence as a personality and everything, it keeps it going. It keeps some form of life in it. So overall, if I had to rate Raw Deal, I'm sort of teetering, literally, between about a 79% and an 80% C+, B-, somewhere in there. After I sit on it for a while, I could see myself putting it at either 78, maybe 81, 82, who knows. Not one of the most memorable of his, but again, worth a watch. So yeah, let me guys talk about Raw Deal. How's it compared to others for you? Do you actually love this movie? Go ahead. So yeah, I actually own it too. I bought it for just a few bucks the other day. I'm fine with having it, So yeah, let me guys thought. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.